Hey everyone, and welcome back. Ready to take a deep dive into the world of leaf hoppers and leaf rot.
You bet. These are challenges a lot of farmers face.
Yeah, and today we're going to equip you with the knowledge and the strategies you need to tackle them head on.
And we'll be talking about how technology can lend a hand, especially a company called Farmonaut.
Right. Think of Farmonaut as your high-tech scout, using satellite imagery to keep an eye on your fields from above.
It's like having a constant stream of data about your crops, helping you spot problems like leaf hoppers before they even become visible from the ground.
So if you're dealing with those pesky leaf hoppers or worried about leaf rot, this deep dive is for you.
Absolutely. We'll cover everything from identification and control to how tech like Farmonaut can make a real difference in protecting your crops.
Okay, so I know you're mainly growing potatoes this season.
Mhm.
There's one leaf hopper in particular that you've got to be on the lookout for, the potato leaf hopper.
Oh yeah, those guys. They're a major pest for potato growers. And they can cause problems for alfalfa and bean crops too.
So what should farmers be looking for? What's the telltale sign that they've got potato leaf hoppers doing their thing in the fields?
Well, keep an eye out for something called hopper burn.
Hopper burn.
Yeah. The edges of the leaves start to yellow and curl, and eventually the whole plant can become stunted. It's almost like they're sucking the life right out of it.
So it's not just cosmetic damage. We're talking about impacting the whole plant's health and ultimately the yield.
Exactly. And what's tricky is that early on the damage can be subtle, you know? You might not even notice it until the infestation is well underway. That's actually one of the areas where Farmonaut can be really helpful.
Oh, really?
Yeah, those satellites can pick up on those subtle changes in plant health long before you'd see them with the naked eye.
Wow, so it's like an early warning system. It gives you time to take action before things get out of hand.
Exactly.
So before we get too deep into the tech side of things, let's talk about what we can do on the ground. Boots on the ground. What are our first lines of defense against these potato leaf hoppers?
Well, one of the simplest but most effective things you can do is try to disrupt their life cycle.
Okay, so how do we do that? How do we mess with their plans?
Crop rotation. It's key. If you plant potatoes in the same field year after year, you're basically rolling out the red carpet for those leaf hoppers. It's like a free buffet for them. But by rotating to different crops, you break that cycle.
So keep them guessing.
Exactly. Make it harder for them to establish themselves.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But what if you've already got an infestation in a field? What can you do in that heat of the moment to combat those potato leaf hoppers?
Well, that's where beneficial insects can really come into play. Things like ladybugs, lacewings, certain types of parasitic wasps. They're natural predators to leafhoppers.
So it's like calling in reinforcements. The good guys to fight the bad guys. I like that approach.
Yeah, and it's a much more sustainable approach than just relying on insecticides all the time. Creating a diverse habitat in and around your fields can really encourage these beneficial insects to stick around.
Got it. So things like planting a mix of flowers and herbs.
Exactly. You create a little ecosystem that supports those beneficial insects, and they'll repay the favor by keeping those leafhoppers in check.
That's some smart farming. So I'm curious, from your experience, what's the biggest mistake you see farmers making when they're dealing with leafhoppers?
I think one of the most common mistakes is just waiting too long to take action. They might see a few leafhoppers here and there and think, it's not a big deal. But the thing is, these pests, they can multiply so quickly. By the time you start seeing that significant damage, it might be too late to fully control that infestation.
Yeah, it's better to be safe than sorry, right? But how do you even know when it's time to intervene? Walking through, acres of crops looking for tiny insects, it sounds like a pretty daunting task.
Oh, it definitely is. And that's where technology can really change the game for you.
Okay, so let's talk tech. Farmonaut, that eye in the sky we mentioned earlier. How does that help farmers stay ahead of these leafhopper infestations?
Well, imagine this. Farmonaut has these satellites, right? They're constantly orbiting the Earth, capturing images of farmland. And these aren't just regular photos, they're multispectral, meaning they're capturing light in different wavelengths.
So it's like seeing beyond just the visible spectrum, right? What kind of information can you actually get from that?
It's amazing what you can learn from these images. They can actually reveal subtle changes in plant health, like stress, nutrient deficiencies, or even the very early stages of a pest infestation, long before you'd see any visible signs just walking through the fields.
So you're catching the problem in its infancy before it has a chance to really blow up.
Right.
That's amazing. But I know what some farmers might be thinking, okay, this all sounds really great, but isn't this kind of technology just for like big agricultural operations?
Yeah.
What about the smaller farms, the little guys?
That's a great question, and it's a common misconception. Farmonaut is designed to be accessible and affordable for farmers of all sizes. They've got different subscription plans to fit different needs and different budgets.
Okay, so it's not just for the big corporate farms. The little guy can get in on the action too. I like that.
And what's really impressive is they're constantly innovating and developing new features. Like just recently, they launched an AI-powered advisory system called Jeevan.
Jeevan, what is this AI advisor all about?
It's pretty cool. Jeevan takes all that data from the satellites and combines it with other information like weather forecasts, soil data, even historical crop performance, and it provides these personalized recommendations to farmers.
So it's like having this virtual farm consultant in your pocket,
Right.
analyzing all this complex data and giving you specific advice on what to do and when to do it.
Exactly. It's all about using data to make better decisions, to optimize every aspect of your farming operation.
So we've talked about potato leafhoppers, the importance of early detection, and how technology like Farmonaut can really give farmers a leg up. But before we move on to part 2, where we're going to delve deeper into the world of Farmonaut and explore some other leafhopper threats out there, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember from today's conversation?
I'd say the most important thing is to be proactive. Don't wait until a problem becomes a crisis. Scout your fields regularly, be observant, and consider using technology like Farmonaut to really get that early warning system in place.
Yeah, great advice. Knowing your enemy and staying ahead of the game, that's half the battle right there. All right, we'll be back soon with part 2, where we'll explore how Farmonaut can help you identify and manage some other types of leafhoppers and prevent that dreaded leaf rot. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Ready to dig a little deeper into this world of leafhoppers and how Farmonaut can help you outsmart them?
Absolutely. Last time we talked about potato leafhoppers, and that early detection is really key. It's amazing to me how Farmonaut can actually use satellite imagery to pick up on those subtle changes in plant health that we might miss at ground level.
Yeah, it really is like having a second set of eyes constantly scanning your fields.
For sure. But potato leafhoppers aren't the only threat out there. What other crops should farmers be watching out for when it comes to leafhoppers?
Well, if you're growing alfalfa or beans, the potato leafhopper can be a problem there too. But there's another leafhopper that can cause real headaches for a wide variety of crops. It's the aster leafhopper.
Aster leafhopper. That name doesn't sound quite as intimidating as potato leafhopper.
Don't let the name fool you. This little guy can transmit a pretty nasty disease called aster yellows, and it can affect tons of plants. Carrots, celery, lettuce, sunflowers, you name it.
Wow, so this isn't just a problem for farmers then. Home gardeners need to be on the lookout for this one too. What does aster yellows actually look like? How do you know if your plants are infected?
It can show up in a few different ways, but one of the most common things you'll see is yellowing and twisting of the leaves. You might also see stunted growth, deformed flowers, even a weird green discoloration of the petals. It's like the plant just can't figure out what it's supposed to be doing.
So it's not even just a matter of lower yields. The quality of the produce is affected too.
Exactly.
That's a double whammy for farmers.
Yeah.
Let's say you've got Farmonaut keeping an eye on your field. How does that help with something like aster yellows?
Well, remember how we talked about those multispectral images Farmonaut captures? They can actually detect subtle changes in the plant's chlorophyll content, which can be an early indicator of aster yellows infection.
So you're saying even before you see those obvious symptoms, Farmonaut is picking up on those kind of like hidden signs of stress?
That's right.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But what can you actually do once you know you've got aster yellows in your field?
Unfortunately, there's no cure for aster yellows once a plant is infected. So prevention is really key here. And that's another area where Farmonaut's early detection can be so valuable.
So it's about stopping that disease from spreading and really causing widespread damage.
Exactly. If Farmonaut gives you that early alert, you can take steps to control the aster leafhopper population before they infect too many plants.
Right, like bringing in those beneficial insects we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Ladybugs, lacewings, those parasitic wasps, they can all make a big difference.
Yeah, creating a diverse habitat is so important. But what if you're already dealing with a pretty big infestation? Are insecticides ever necessary at that point?
Insecticides should always be a last resort, in my opinion, but in some cases they might be necessary. Even then, Farmonaut can be really helpful.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, because it can pinpoint the problem areas so precisely, you can target your insecticide applications much more effectively.
Gotcha. So no need to blanket spray the whole field. You just focus on the hot spots.
Yeah.
Exactly. It minimizes the impact on those beneficial insects and reduces the overall amount of chemicals you're using.
This is so fascinating to me. It really shows how technology can make farming more efficient and more sustainable.
It's all about working smarter, not harder,
Yeah.
right? Using data to guide our decisions every step of the way.
Okay, so we've covered potato leafhoppers, aster leafhoppers, and how Farmonaut can help farmers stay one step ahead. But what about leaf rot?
Yeah.
We touched on that earlier. How does that fit into all of this?
So leaf rot is often kind of a secondary problem. It's a fungal disease that tends to take hold when plants are already stressed. Things like damage from leaf hoppers can make them more vulnerable.
So the leafhoppers are kind of creating the perfect environment for leaf rot to move in.
Right, those feeding wounds create entry points for the fungus, and the stressed plants are just more susceptible to disease in general.
So controlling the leafhoppers is a big part of preventing leaf rot. Are there other things that farmers can do to specifically target that leaf rot, though?
There are some cultural practices that can help for sure. Things like making sure there's enough space between plants for good airflow,
Okay.
avoiding overhead irrigation to keep the leaves dry,
Right.
and cleaning up any infected plant material right away to stop that fungus from spreading.
So it's about good sanitation and just creating an environment that's less hospitable to that fungal growth.
Exactly.
But can Farmonaut play a role in managing leaf rot too?
You bet. Remember that Farmonaut's imagery can detect those really subtle changes in plant health that could be early signs of a fungal infection.
So it's possible you could catch that leaf rot before it really takes hold.
Exactly. Early detection is key.
That's pretty incredible. But how does Farmonaut know the difference between stress caused by leaf hoppers and stress caused by, a fungal disease?
That's where the AI comes in. Farmonaut's system is constantly learning and refining its algorithms to identify different patterns in the data. It's like having a team of plant pathologists analyzing your fields 24/7.
Wow, that's pretty mind-blowing. So it's not just about detecting stress. It's about understanding what's causing it.
Right. And that's a real game changer for farmers.
For sure. This has been so fascinating. We've talked about different types of leafhoppers, the role of beneficial insects, and how Farmonaut is using cutting-edge technology to really help farmers protect their crops.
It's all about empowering farmers with knowledge, right? Giving them the information they need to make the best decisions for their operation.
Absolutely. So before we move on to part 3, where we'll dive even deeper into Farmonaut and explore some of their other features, what's one key takeaway you want our listeners to leave with today?
I think the most important thing to remember is you don't have to go it alone. There are resources out there to help you, whether it's expert advice, new technologies, or even just connecting with other farmers who are facing the same challenges.
I love that. We're all in this together. All right, we'll be back soon with part 3, where we'll talk about how you can actually get started with Farmonaut and look at some of their more advanced features. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring those leaf hoppers and leaf rot and how technology like Farmonaut can really give farmers an advantage in managing those threats.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how much ag tech has advanced,
Sure.
We've gone from relying on just our own observations to having access to all this data and these incredible insights.
It really is like having a whole team of experts in your back pocket. But for those who haven't jumped into the world of Farmonaut yet, how does it actually work? What are the first steps a farmer would need to take to get started?
It's actually really easy to get going. You can just head over to their website or download the Farmonaut app. It's available for, Android and iOS.
Okay.
They have a few different subscription plans, so you can pick one that works for the size of your farm and what you need. Once you're signed up, you just have to define your field boundaries in their system.
So it's like you're drawing a digital map of your farm, so Farmonaut knows exactly where to look.
That's it, and then the magic happens. The Farmonaut satellites will start collecting data on your fields, and you can seed all of the information through the app or on your computer. You'll get those multispectral images we've been talking about that can reveal things about your crops you just wouldn't be able to see otherwise.
And then that's where Jeevan comes in, right? That AI advisor that can take all that data and give you actual advice on what to do.
Right. Jeevan looks at everything, the satellite imagery, the weather, soil data, historical crop performance, all of it. And then it comes up with customized recommendations for your farm and your crops.
So it might tell you to adjust your irrigation or maybe apply fertilizer differently, or even give you a heads up that there might be a pest or disease problem brewing?
Exactly. It's all about making those data-driven decisions.
That's so cool. What if you're already using some other farm management software? Can you integrate Farmonaut with those systems?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Farmonaut has an API, so it can talk to other platforms. So if you're already using something to keep track of your planting or your costs, you can connect Farmonaut's data right into that.
So it's not about replacing your existing tools, it's about adding to them.
Right. It's about creating a system that works for you. One of the things I really like about Farmonaut is how transparent they are. They're open about where their data comes from, their algorithms, how everything works.
Okay.
They're even working with universities and research institutions sharing data to try to improve our understanding of agriculture as a whole.
So it's not just about helping individual farmers, it's about the bigger picture of sustainable agriculture and global food security.
Exactly. So what do you think is next for Farmonaut? What kind of cool new stuff are they working on?
Well, they're always innovating, that's for sure. I know they're working on some even more advanced algorithms to detect even subtler changes in plant health, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, and they're looking at new ways to use their data to help farmers use less water and fertilizer and even predict their yields more accurately.
It's exciting to think about all the possibilities.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's not about the technology itself. It's about how it's used to empower farmers.
It really is. It's about giving farmers the information they need to make those smart decisions and adapt to the challenges they face.
Well said. It's been a fantastic journey exploring the world of leaf hoppers, leaf rot, and all this amazing technology that's changing the way we farm. We've talked about early detection, using data to make better decisions, and how tools like Farmonaut can really help create a more sustainable future for agriculture.
It's been great to see how technology can be such a powerful force for good in the agricultural world.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to encourage you all to keep learning and keep exploring.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to try new things and connect with other folks in the agricultural community.
The future of farming really is in our hands, and it's up to all of us to work together to create a more sustainable and abundant future for everyone.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us today. Until next time, keep on learning, keep on questioning, and keep on diving deep.